Hello, everyone, and welcome to Aviz Networks Podcast series. My name is Shruti Jha, and I'm Digital Marketing Manager at Aviz Networks. Thank you for joining us today. We are diving into one of the most exciting and fast moving topics in networking, the rapid rise of SONiC, and how enterprises, cloud providers, and AI driven organizations are rethinking their infrastructures using open networking principles. I'm thrilled to welcome someone who has been leading this evolution from the front, Thomas Scheibe, Chief Product Officer at Aviz Networks. Thomas brings over 25 years of leadership across Cisco and Intel, where he helped shape data center product lines, launched Cisco's first SONiC offering, and led innovation in AI infrastructure, DPUs, and high performance internet. Thomas, it's great to have you. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Shirley. This is going to be a fun podcast.
So we have been hearing a lot of questions from our listeners about SONiC and everything from, readiness, interoperability to cost, or to the point where they also want to know where to get started. So I would like to walk through these questions, most asked questions with you today.
Okay, let's get going.
So to start with, Thomas, interest in SONiC has been growing dramatically across enterprises, hyperscalers, and now even AI infrastructure teams. From your perspective, why is SONiC gaining momentum right now? What macro trends are pushing organizations to take a new look at open networking?
Yeah, that's a good question. In particular, I think SONiC started in 2016, 17, and initially driven by the large cloud providers or hyperscalers, how we call them. What we do see in the last 2 to 3 years is a significant expansion of interest outside of those customers to use SONiC, and quite frankly, it's the same reasons that drove those hyperscalers in the first place. It's really a couple of items. One is better control over the network operating system roadmap by using an open source based approach, so you can actually have visibility and drive features as needed. I think that's one. And then the second one is really SONiC is abstracted from the hardware. So it's a common network operating system that will run across different products from different hardware vendors, as well as across, actually, which is also very important, different silicon vendors. So it provides literally a unified OS approach based on open source that will work, provides these customers flexibility across where they buy the switches and what ASICs are in these switches. So that's a tremendous amount of flexibility, and you really want this because there are operational costs around deploying operating system, and obviously there are CapEx costs involved with buying hardware. And so the reason why this is becoming more and more attractive is, and we will get a little bit more on the later in this podcast into, is that the network buying cycles, refresh cycles are shortening because of the rapid innovation that is driven by AI bandwidth needs. And so the advantage of SONiC that we're there from the beginning are actually not just nice to have at this point, they're a must have to actually being able to deal with the innovation cycle requirements that AI puts forward for these organizations. So that's kind of in a nutshell why SONiC adoption is accelerating.
So a question we often hear all the time is SONiC really ready for production? Now, many leaders, they are curious about SONiC, right? But they are a little bit cautious based on what you see across, customer deployments and industry adoptions. How would you like to answer to that question?
Yeah, and it's good. It's a really good question because I think it has multiple facets. Quite often it's just reduced, hey, this SONiC, the community distribution have all the features that all the other operating systems, the proprietary operating system available from vendors have, right? And obviously the answer is no, quite frankly, because these operating systems are around for 10, 20, 30 years in some cases, and they were built for a market, or actually many market segment, right? And so the feature discussion is actually not really what most people really care about when they ask this question. Is really more around, is there an ecosystem around SONiC? Is there a support capability around SONiC, right? If you really want to take advantage of SONiC being one OS running across different hardware, is there actually a single support vendor that can support an enterprise with that? That's the question I think that most people really worry about. The next one, hey, this is a new operating system. All our operation tooling we use today is structured around existing operating systems. So can I use this tooling, or is there tooling that supports SONiC as an operating system if I adopt this? So these are typically, I think, the more I want to say they're not interesting, but the more concerning, or the bigger concerns that customers have that I talk to when they say, "Hey, is SONiC really ready for production?" And the answer to this is yes, it is. And this is where, quite frankly, Aviz is coming in, because when we started this was basically our assessment around SONiC. What does it mean? It's not just that SONiC has all the right features for the segments where you want to deploy it. It's actually a set of support and tooling infrastructure for SONiC to make it operational for enterprise customers. And so, yeah, I can say it is ready. We have customer that we're supporting for 3+ years in large scale deployments to prove it. But that's really the question, is not so much around features, is really around is a support capability and operational stack and tools that support SONiC. That's really the question, and the answer to that is yes.
So that's good to hear. And Avis recently introduced Avis certified community SONiC, and it's getting a lot of attention, really. For listeners who may not be very familiar with the nuances, how would you like to break it down from what it is and how it differs from, your standard open source SONiC distribution?
Yeah, this is, by the way, this is a direct follow-on, right? And again, it comes down to what is needed to make SONiC really deployable in a broad enterprise environment. And so what we basically did with certified community SONiC is take all the learnings that we have as enterprise customers. We're supporting, as I said, for 3+ years in large scale deployment, saying instead of engaging them on a one-on-one basis, we should take all those learnings and make this into a certified community SONiC distribution. And what this really means is we're basically saying, here's a list of hardware switches across different ASICs. And again, we're actually supporting all 4 major ASIC families, Broadcom ASICs, Marvell ASICs, NVIDIA Mellanox ASIC, and Cisco ASIC, and basically have pre-built images, SONiC images available for those list of devices. And when I say pre-built, that means we tested them. There is a data sheet. What is the capability feature-wise, as well as interoperability, as well as scale-wise for those images on those devices. And the idea behind this is, if you want to start now, you don't want to spend 3 months trying to figure out what is available, does it work, go through a testing exercise. You want to be saying, hey, show me the data sheet, show me what is supported, and I can download the image and can start using it. And so that's basically what Aviz certified community SONiC is. And so some listeners probably say, hey, so now aren't you doing what everybody else does with a NOS? And the answer is no. That's a very, very important differentiation. We do build these images. We make them available. Number one, they're available for free to download and use. However, on top of it, we're using community SONiC as a base. And that means every time we build this image, customers will have access to the source code of the SONiC components that is built into this image. So they actually have full control over it. What's in, they see what's in. It's based on community SONiC plus additional things, again, with source code as part of this image. That's the huge differentiator versus other NOS approaches that you see in the industry.
Hmm. Now, one of the biggest value proposition of SONiC is its multi-vendor flexibility, but that flexibility would only matter if everything actually works together. So how does Avis ensure true interoperability across platforms, whether it's Broadcom, NVIDIA, Marvell, others?
Yeah, very good point. That's kind of what I a little bit touched on, but let me elaborate. Right, there are really two dimensions on multi-vendor. There is multi-vendor as what is the core of the device, which is really the switch silicon. And you just mentioned the 4 main vendors that cover, I want to say, probably 95% plus of the market, which is between Broadcom, NVIDIA, Marvell, and Cisco. Silicon from those 4 vendors is powering pretty much all devices today that go into these network deployments. And so every one of those supports SONiC today. And then the second dimension is the switch window that used to the ASIC to build switches. And there's a whole variety of probably 30 to 40 vendors that use any one of these 4 ASIC products and build a switch out of it. And so what we do is we're really, as I said, we're testing the Aviz certified community SONiC against a mix of switches from different vendors with ASICs from each one of these four different main ASIC vendors. And so when we're saying testing, we have basically a standardized automated test plan that runs through the same set of feature against all devices to make sure it behave consistently. And then we also have test beds where we have different devices from different vendors interacting with each other. So when we publish these test reports, we actually have validated that there's an interoperability for the select set of features across devices and across silicon. So that's really how we go after multi-vendor ability to really expose and make accessible to customers the value of what SONiC really should provide, which is multi-vendor flexibility.
Now, coming to the testing part, Avis often highlights the 500 plus automated tests that run inside the one center. Now, that's a massive validation effort. Can you walk us through what the process looks like and why this level of testing is so important for customers evaluating SONiC?
Yeah, it's really important. So yeah, if you really think about if today if you buy as a customer switches and operating system vendor, you assume that when they tested that operating system for the set of switches from that particular vendor. And so what we're actually doing here is the same, but instead of using switches from one vendor, we're using switches from multiple vendors with different silicon inside. And so again, we're a pure software company, but we do have a very large lab with hardware from these different partners in our one center in Fremont, California. And we literally have an automated test suite, we call it F-Test, to run through feature testing, behavior testing. We call it chaos testing for failover, basically simulating real customer environment and validating that these certified community SONiC images work consistently across different hardware, different silicon from different vendors. And the reason why you really want this as a customer, because when you first deploy it, you want to have some peace of mind that, hey, this got validated, not just, hey, somebody did bring it up and it seems to work, but really there was some rigorous testing across different scenarios done across different hardware. And so that's really what we do in One Center. We do it on an ongoing basis. Every time we bring another release out for Avis Certified Community SONiC, we will run this through across the whole set of hardware. So that's really what this is about. And quite frankly, based on my past experience, it's a tremendous value to customers when they start deploying or upgrading that they have the peace of mind there was done a lot of certification and validation upfront.
Okay. And when enterprises choose Avis certified community SONiC, their next question is usually like, okay, what do we actually get? Can you walk us through the full package? Things like support, migration assistance, and operational capabilities.
Yeah, that's a good question because it sounds too good to be true. So let's break down what you get. You're actually getting as a customer and user a lot. So when we say Avis Certified Community SONiC, you can go to our webpage. You obviously need to register and log in, but what you get, you will be able to download the Certified Community SONiC distribution for free for your set of switches. We have a list of supported switches with detail on silicon, what port speeds is on these switches. You will be able to download the image, Community SONiC, Certified Community SONiC image for free from our webpage. With that, we will provide a software bill of materials so you actually see what went into that image. Very important from a security perspective, being able to track what components are in there, because obviously it's not just one big component. There's modules in there, right? As some of you know, SONiC is under the hood a bunch of processes. We will specify as part of that software bill of materials what level, what ref level is in every component, so you actually know and you can have all the capabilities. The next thing we will make available for every one of the supported hardware switches, a free test report, the F-test report we call it. We're running through this 500 plus tests, and we make it available so you as a potential user can see what was tested, what the result were for that image. So that is available for free. Then the next thing what we do is we have a set of product, and the two main one is really what we call Once, Aviz Once, which is a telemetry configuration tool. That is available from us. That will be available for a fee, but that will support Aviz certified community sonic images. So if you deploy those and you want to start monitoring and your production, which everybody wants to do, that's the toolings that I talked about earlier. We have that available, and we will make sure our Aviz ones will support all the Aviz certified community sonic images. So that's one tool, and that will help you with migrating. It will help you with monitoring networks in production. It'll help you with configuration, pushing templates for configuration, all these good things. And then the second tool that we have available as a subscription is called Network Copilot. That really is a tool that brings to and stitches together different networking tools that you have today, whether it's once, whether it's a syslog tool, whether it's a flow capture tool, whether it's your incident tracking system you have in place, or whether it's your configuration database. Now, a Copilot will be able to stitch things together and provide a common language interface
Hmm.
across all these tools to make it simpler to troubleshoot, to figure out what's going on in your production environment. So the basic OS, all the detail about what went into this, available for free. The operational support stack, Aviz Ones and Aviz Network Copilot, available supporting Aviz Certified Community Sonic, that will be available as a subscription from us. So that's what you get. I am actually really excited because if I look at my past experience, that's a lot of cool stuff in a package.
That indeed is. Now, going to the major topic, right? Cost reduction. So, cost reduction is a major driver for Sonic adoption. Organizations want vendor choice, but they also expect the real financial impact. From your experience, how much can enterprises really realistically save? And what does a typical ROI timeline look like?
Yeah, good point. I want to break this a little bit down because a lot of time this comes up, and people, quite frankly, people that start only with cost reduction in mind, my personal experience, they're not successful. That's why I want to break down what this really means. If you when if you listen to the answer to the first question, what drives adoption of Sonic, it is really around, there's a capex component, which is for most people when they think cost reductions. Hey, I can buy the hardware at a lower price because now I have choice and it's the same OS. That certainly is true, and that is one clear motivator.
Mhm.
But the second one is really around the operational costs of running networks. If you have to build and optimize and perfect your operational stack around one operating system called Sonic, it will be the same across different hardware. In particular, with Aviz certified community Sonic, you're going to have the same release that will work across different set of hardware. You have midterm, long term, a significant reduction of operational expenditure, OpEx costs, just around how do you monitor and manage these networks? How many people do you need? Because you only have one OS, you don't have 5 OSs running in parallel, where you constantly have to try to figure out what's the difference and why they're behaving differently. So the savings potential is really the capex and OpEx, and that drives an ROI. So answer the question that everybody is looking for. So how much should I expect? Mileage will vary. And first thing I say, it really depends on what you have negotiated already today with your existing vendors. We have seen, let me give you a range, and that's why I want to say mileage vary depending on what you already have negotiated. We have seen anywhere between 40 to 60% in both capex and OpEx reduction. And based on that, you should get to an ROI timeline, return on investment, in 2 years or less. And that's a very important piece. Remember when I said in the beginning, the reason what drives the accelerated Sonic adoption is
Mhm.
faster time of innovation. You actually need to be able to recoup your investment into new network infrastructure faster to be able to adopt new speeds, new hardware. And so the hour time limit is very, very crucial. It used to be you had 5 to 7 years to recoup your investment. Today, you probably have 3 years or less. And so getting to an ROI time of 2 years or less will answer the problem that most customers face today. The cost of the infrastructure needs to go down to get better ROI that matches the innovation requirements. So that's, I hope, answers a little bit the question what you should expect and what you
Hmm.
should focus on, CapEx and OpEx, not just CapEx.
That makes sense. So, looking ahead, Sonic is becoming central to AI fabrics and next generation speeds like 400G, 800G. When you look at the next 12 to 24 months, which advancements or trends you are most excited about?
Oh, this is a good question. The people that know me, I'm in the industry for 25 years. I worked on a lot of silicon development and networking. I worked on the software side. I worked on silicon for DPUs. What I'm actually really excited about, we're going back to a balance of innovation, both on software as well as and switching silicon, quite frankly. And again, this is really driven by what we call the AI era. It's a rapid innovation cycles on GPU, TPUs, which then drives innovation requirements on the network side. And so what we're really seeing from a speed perspective, you already alluded to it, there's, today 400 gig is the de facto, quite frankly, for GPU networks. That will go to 800 gig within the next 12 months. There's discussion already around what are the standards for 1.6T, again, doubling it up.
Mhm.
Um, but it's not just on the switching side. There's also a lot of innovation that needs to happen on the next side that goes into these GPU servers, because you need to match. Excuse me, you need to match the speed on the switch side as well as on the server on the next side. So you have that going on, and so there is focus on being able to support that. That's as a solution, really what you need to do on the server side, network interfaces, as well as on the network itself. And then there's the software side, right? Because if you look at AI, it drives additional requirement around how networks prioritize traffic, how network is actually uh, transferring traffic or basic packets over the wire for these AI centric application. So there's not just a speed component, there's also a configuration service component, how to configure networks for AI workloads. And you probably hear a lot of talks around lossless behavior, retransmission, optimization around latency, tail end latency. There's all these things that are floating around, which really have to do is how do you deal with requirements of AI applications with respect to network. And so we're seeing a lot of innovations there, and actually having the tooling, what we do with Aviz ONE to be able to monitor and then configure those things is very, very important. And so that's the reason why we have that stack. It's not just the OS and the support, it's the stack on top. You need to be able to actually monitor and manage those environments. So yeah, that's what I see happening. A lot of innovation both on the software side and hardware side, and we're ready at Aviz with our software stack.
And now coming to the final question. So for anyone listening who wants to get hands-on, what's the easiest way to start experimenting with SONiC? Are there any labs that you would recommend, tools or programs?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, you probably was like, Thomas, this sounds great. So number one, SONiC is an open source project in the Linux Foundation. So there's a lot of educational material available if you go there. Obviously, if you come to our webpage, aviznetworks.com, we have details on any one of these components I mentioned, whether this is SONiC, how do we support SONiC, once, which is part of the tooling stack, Network Copilot, which is part of the tooling stack. You can clearly go there. Next thing, are there labs and demos? Yes, we do have standing demos. Please contact us, set up a session. We can walk you through how to actually monitor, operate SONiC environments. If you're interested in Aviz certified community SONiC, you can log in our webpage. You can actually download the images and the documentation with it. If you want to try it out and you actually have devices that support SONiC. We do have certification program from Aviz for people that want to train their own teams or themselves around SONiC. That is available from us. So there are a lot of different avenues. But yeah, I would say contact Aviz. We're here to help you across, and we will point you to either public reference site. We can connect you with hardware partners that support switches with SONiC. There's so many avenues. So I'm really, really looking forward to getting a lot of inquiries. But yeah, we're here to help.
So, Thomas, this has been a great conversation. SONiC is clearly entering a new chapter, and Avis is playing a pivotal role in making open networking enterprise ready, especially as AI infrastructure demands speed, flexibility, and cost efficiency like never before. So, thank you so much for joining me today. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with your colleague who are exploring next generation networking. Until next time, thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Shruti. This was fun. And yeah, please follow us. And if you're interested in more details, contact us. Thanks, everyone.